privilege to kindly ask the President-elect of the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Mogens Lykketoft, to please address you. President-elect.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. I think we'll be meeting rather often in the future. And let me, at the outset, underline that I intend to let my presidency be characterized by openness and transparency. And I will, with my whole team, which are being gathered right now, look forward to working with all of you for the next 15 months. I'm of course very, very honored that the General Assembly has entrusted me, my country, to take upon us the presidency of the 70th session. We'll be celebrating the 17 years of the United Nations. We will also reflect both on successes and shortcomings, as I just said on the podium. And we have chosen the theme of the presidency, the UN at 70, a new commitment to action, which is of course very much connected with all the important issues. First, in Rome, the decisions on the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a very, very transformative agenda for the globe in the coming years. And I think is representing an extract of the urgency to act if we should be able to eradicate the extreme poverty in this world in the next 15 years. Because we cannot do it in the same way as we have the extreme poverty in the past 15 years. We have to have a much more sustainable economic development model. It will take a lot of changes for all of us, but it is the only way, I think, to avoid an unsustainable and unavoidable rise in global temperatures, which will create mass migrancy, new conflicts, and make it very possible for us to eradicate poverty and create peace in this world. So it's a very important year. It's not only important that the heads of state and government will actually decide on the goals in September. It's as important that the conference, the financing for development will be successful, and that the implementation will be successful. And we will take a lot of initiatives during this presidency in order to keep strong public attention and pressure on the implementation and the national efforts to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. I assume that you have listened maybe to the headlines of my speech already, so I will not go in further details about all the initiatives necessary on peace and security, on human rights, on the whole process of selecting a new Secretary General during the upcoming year, and the possibilities of moving forward in the discussion on reform of the United Nations Security Council. There are a lot of very, very complicated issues, I know, and I'm very much aware that we cannot, we should not have illusions that everything can be done, but we will do whatever we can to make as much progress on all these fields of activity possible as we could. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes. We'll start with the United Nations Correspondent Association.
Yep.
How do you do? I'm from Liverpool. On the SDGs, which are thousands of pages long, hundreds of pages long, how can you cope with them without streamlining them a bit? And secondly, can you do anything to change the name, which when you print it anywhere, nobody can react to it? It's probably the most boring name that the UN has brought up in a long time. And then a personal question, can you pronounce your name for me?
Yes, I can start with that. That's easier for me to answer the first question. Mogens Lykketoft. Mogens Lykketoft. Yeah, it's complicated. But well, about the Sustainable Development Goals, you are mentioning the name and the complexity as a problem. That may be true, but I think that the decision to make this comprehensive analysis and action plan for the global development is maybe pedagogically complicated, but it's a necessary exercise. It's necessary to underline the fact that none of these important questions about eradicating poverty, creating more equality between nations and inside nations, making climate development sustainable, environmental problems solved, it's all linked together in a way that we have to be aware of and act against if we should ever be able to eradicate poverty and create lasting peace. And we will have to work with it. But I think when I am in a discussion about these goals, I start with the challenges for the decision makers in this world. They must understand that if they don't act now, they will maybe not be able to solve the problems in 10 or 15 years' time.
That's the way that it should be written.
I think it should be written that way. And we have to think much more on the next generation than on the next elections.
Mr. President, we have a question.
Mr. President-elect, my name is Abdul Hamid Sayani from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi, which means Arab Jerusalem, based
Yes.
in London. And I have two questions, Mr. First, what is your position on seeing Palestine a full member of the United Nations? Second, can the Palestinian people wait for your decision to have Palestine also a member of the UN during your presidency?
I have a lot of sympathy for the Palestinian people, but I am not in a position or in a capability to promise membership, full membership for Palestine during this upcoming session. But I'm sure that there will be much attention on the Palestinian issue also in this session.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press. You'd mentioned the selection of the next Secretary General. So I wanted to know what you think the role of the General Assembly is in vetting candidates, whether there should be more than one candidate, whether there should be debates of candidates. And I also wanted to ask you about, there's a high-profile case right now about alleged sexual abuse by peacekeepers in the Central African Republic. The OIOS was found to be kind of involved in retaliating against a Mr. Compass from Sweden. And I wonder, as somebody coming in, what do you think this means? And do you think that the UN protection of whistleblowers, but also protection of the people where peacekeepers are, can be reformed and improved, and if so, how?
Well, I'm aware, of course, of the case and the conflicting issues involved in that case, but I don't think I'm in a position right now to make further comments before I am much better briefed about the circumstances in that. And the other question was... Selection of the Secretary General. What the role of the... Yeah. Well, we all know that this process has been rather closed in the past. And what I heard during my meetings in April with all the 5 regional groups, the ambassadors, all the 5 regional groups, was a very strong wish from a majority of countries that we would have now a much more open process of presentation, not only, as one said, in Davos, Switzerland, but here at the United Nations, in some kind of cooperation between the Security Council and the General Assembly. but I can't tell you more about the details right now, but I have observed a very strong wish from member states that this should be a process where different candidates could be presented directly here in the United Nations.
Next question.
Yes, Stefano Vaccana, Radio Radicale in Rome and La Voce di New York. You know that in September there will be the Pope Francis coming.
Yes.
And we just heard that he's coming out with a document on environment. And my question is, do you think that this Pope can help the United Nations to reach those goals about environment? And you, about your leadership, how do you what kind of style you want to give to this leadership? Because we saw President of a General Assembly, you know, working hard, but at the same time have a kind of a low profile. What kind of style do you will have?
Last question is difficult to answer. I think you will have to figure it out during my tenure. About the Pope, I think it's a very, very interesting and encouraging statement made by the Pope in connection with the environmental and climate challenges we are facing. And I hope that would be a very instrumental support, not only for the decision on the Sustainable Development Goals, but also on the implementation and the understanding among, of course, especially the Roman Catholic constituency around the world, of the necessity to act in this important area.
Thank you. Okay, the legitimate question here.
Carlos Day, Global Research. Welcome, President Lykketoft.
Thank you.
You spoke of the focus on eliminating poverty, which of course should be a major priority. There have been, and I'm sure you're familiar with this also, analyses by economist Thomas Piketty in France and by Joe Stiglitz that inequality globally is expanding and is increasing. So I have two questions. What effect do you think this will have on global peace and stability? And how can you eliminate poverty globally if you've got a gross increase in inequality? In some countries, they say that development, that the gross national product has increased and development has reached a higher level, but inequality has increased, which means that a tiny portion of people are getting the benefits of development.
I am very much aware of this development of more inequality among nations, but especially within nations. That goes for the United States and China, that goes for very many big and important countries. And I think it's very, very encouraging that now, as far as I know, for the first time, the draft for the Sustainable Development Goals is actually focusing on the need to go against this increasing inequality in the world. Also because I don't think that we will ever be able in an environmentally sustainable way to eradicate poverty without redistributing wealth and income. Because if nations are not able to finance through contributions from their richer population the necessary investment in education, health, all those urgent services for the poor people, you will not be able to eradicate poverty.
Last question, Mr. President.
Thank you. My name is Mogens